Going into more specifics about like your olive mills or other processing facilities, have you explored using automation or robotics in these areas?
Oh, there goes my life. Um, I have looked at it. The challenge is, um, robotics in manufacturing is tried and true at this point, right?
Mhm.
But it's very expensive. You're talking about, you know, mid six figures for a basic manufacturing robot.
Yeah.
Uh, it's really hard to justify that when my entire olive mill cost me 500,000.
Mhm.
So the entire mill was that much. And like, well, what am I going to automate? I could automate little pieces of it, but there's really not a big, there's not a large amount to be gained
Mhm.
uh, because it's relatively slow throughput. So, for example, now there are some folks that have much larger mills. My mill processes about 3 tons of fruit an hour. There are a couple mills up north that process 100 tons of fruit an hour.
Mhm.
So I process 1 truckload a day. They process 5 truckloads an hour. Whoa. It's a whole nother scale, right? And so if they can find ways to automate things, that's great. I do know that they use a number of different technologies to monitor their equipment because it points out problems. Like one of them is a vibration analysis. Have you heard of that? And that's an automation system that'll actually shut down their entire line if it detects something vibrating wrong. Pretty neat when you've got spinning things at 5,000 RPMs that, it's not going to pop or blow up. Um, it's going to just get shut down. And then you can take a look and see what the problem is.
Yeah.
That's one place where I see that. The other place, and I've seen this automation where they automate packaging lines and get rid of hand filling of things. I have a friend who runs one of those really large packaging or really large olive milling facilities, and you have to reach a certain threshold of size to justify it. But they, I, I need 2 people to do all my bottling,
Mhm.
and I bottle. You know, I'll be lucky if I get to 20,000 gallons next year. They package over 1 million gallons a year,
Wow.
right? So that's 50x, and they do it with 2 people
Wow.
because it's all automated.
Mhm.
Everything's automated, but they're filling a pallet of stuff. All everything's automated and it's wrapped and sealed, and it drops it. And they have one forklift driver at the front and one at the back. That's it. And could they automate the forklifting? Maybe, but at a certain point, you want some eyes on it because you have to have somebody watching it. And the forklift drivers know how to run everything.
Yeah.
So they're running everything and they're just making sure that there's flow in and out.
Have you seen any challenges beyond just cost that maybe have stopped farmers from adopting new technologies?
I've already mentioned one of the problems that doesn't seem that big a deal when you're living in Irvine, but it is when you're living in the Imperial Valley. We're rural.
Mhm.
So we don't have technical expertise to service the machines.
Mhm.
We don't have a lot of demand. So there might be, in my hometown, there might be 5 companies that could automate processes with robots, 5 different packing plants or 5 different things. While in LA, there's 500.
Yeah.
So we get a lot less service, right? We find this all the time where we're so small they don't care about us.
Mhm.
Until you reach a certain threshold, you're just an annoyance
Yeah.
professional. So it's a frustrating truth about rural enterprise. So you would have to have somebody who actually understood agriculture. Secondly, unlike Los Angeles, we're not clean. I mean, we can make it happen. We can have a clean packaging facility, but we're surrounded by dirt, right? Surrounded by farming. It's a lot of robotics don't do well in the dirt.
Mhm.
They want to they want a clean room. A chip fab could be pretty much automated. All the welding on a car can be automated. but it's all in a pristine building space.
Yeah.
Um, Now there is some robotics, and this is interesting. There's a group that you can look at called Monarch, and the Monarch tractor is an electric tractor that and it has a spot for a driver on it.
Mm,
But once the driver drives his route, so you tell the driver very carefully, do exactly what you want to do.
mm,
Once you've done that, you can program that as weeding. Now you're going to do another route, and you can program that as scraping, and another route that you can program as thinning. Like you're doing a bottom cut on your trees, and that tractor can replicate that route to the 10th of an inch
wow.
continuously on battery power, which is nice because you're no longer paying for fuel.
Mm,
And you could set up solar panels. So you've got a completely sustainable solution here, right?
mm,
And all you need is to make sure that you've got someone at the head end, which can be a foreman or an owner like me, that programs it, that says, okay, do the weeding system. And it's got enough sensors to where it's not going to run over anybody because it is rural. And it will inform you via cell phone if it has a problem, and it just shuts itself down for safety. So let's say that, the neighbor's dog ran into your orchard and cut in front of it, and it stops. Oh, hey, don't want to kill that thing.
yeah.
Just like a driver would, right? A lot less stressful autonomy than Tesla, right? Because there's just not that much happening in an orchard compared to a normal street in Irvine. So that is an opportunity, but it's also really scary because you're automating something that is big enough to run people over and damage them, right? Tractors are big machines.
Mm,
They're kind of terrifying when you get too close. If you don't believe that that person can see you, or it, and you see this in rural places, people are killed by tractors all the time.
oh. So is there any specific technology that you'd like to see engineers kind of make farm friendly or develop?
That's interesting. Um, I would like to see an automated weeding system that was battery powered, that would be autonomous, like a Roomba for weeds,
Yeah.
because it's such a waste of human. And then once you do weeds, maybe you can do pruning. And
Mm,
once you do pruning, then you do shredding behind that. So you're talking about the places where in an orchard you spend a lot of money, and it's not high value money, right? It's having people do boring, repetitive tasks that are much better done by a machine.
yeah.
You can trust the machine to do it right.
Mm,
Like if I could set up a pruning system, a farm management robot that, you know, was actually more like C3PO and less like even a Roomba. I mean, a Roomba is fine as long as it's four-wheel drive and he's driving over and he sees a weed and he yanks it out or he beams it with a laser.
mhm.
There is a laser right now that can do that. But it has to be in a pristine machine that is behind a tractor that can't be autonomous because the driver needs to be monitoring all the lasers.
Mhm.
And it literally zaps the weeds around the lettuce plants. Very high value instead of a hand crew going in and hoeing.
So you'd like to see some type
Using
of,
multispectral imaging to determine the difference between romaine lettuce and Johnson grass or Bermuda grass or something else that would choke it out.
mhm. So just some type of artificial intelligence to be able to
Yeah.
differentiate between these things.
So a combination of learning algorithm or an AI that you can teach, this is a weed, this is a weed, this is a weed, and then it just follows behind you. And if I had 100 of those things scurrying around my orchard all the time, and then I could take them to my neighbor's orchard and he could clean that up too. We could grow olives fully organically.
Hmm.
It's weed control that keeps us from doing that for the most part. That's the hardest part of organic farming, which, I would much rather spend my money on a repeatable technology than on a herbicide
Hmm.
or on the labor to spray the herbicide. And I don't want my robot to spray a herbicide. I want my robot to mechanically damage the weed, and just like I would mechanically damage it. Because if you can eliminate the herbicide, then the robot allows you to shift to organic. And that's a big plus, both in the marketplace and for the consumer. The marketplace for me, better economics. Consumer, I think a better quality product because you're not stressing the tree out. Herbicides aren't good for the soils. Farmers don't want to use them. We kind of feel like we have to
Yeah.
because weeds can take over an orchard like nobody's business.
Mhm. So as we have concluded this overall idea in this podcast, what advice would you give to different engineers or farmers who are trying to create different solutions to meet these needs in the community?
Um, I think that technology developers need to spend time with farmers instead of just in a lab. You actually have to kick the tires. You have to have dirt on your shoes because it's a different world on a ranch to understand what we're dealing with on a daily basis. Like today. Today we had a rainstorm come over San Diego. Did it rain in Irvine?
Yeah.
Yeah, it rained. It rained in the mid-afternoon in the desert where we were. So we had to stop harvesting. So we missed out on 3 or 4 hours of harvesting, and that puts my whole schedule back, right? And if I get too many days of rain in a row, I'm really screwed because I got to wait for things to dry out before I can get back in there. And the fruit will be too wet, and then I've got milling problems at the back end of that. So you've got all of these things that you're reliant upon Mother Nature, and technology developers are a little bit too clean. They often are thinking about things in a laboratory environment, and they need to understand the robustness that is necessary in an ag space, as well as talking to farmers that actually are willing to help and come up with solutions for them.
Yeah, getting hands-on
Farmers are
experience.
busy people, I mean, we've got a lot of things to do, and um, it in addition to which, it's not your fault, but there are more snake oil salesmen offering solutions to agriculture than you'd believe. I bet my brother and I get one call a week all year long. Have I got a new fertilizer for you? Or, try this and this will solve all your bug problems, your nitrogen problems, your labor problems, your software problems. It's a little bit too, I mean, we're getting pitched all the time because we're in the public domain, right? Our names are available. You can see the business.
Yeah.
So we're always getting calls. And I'm not saying that business owners in cities don't have similar problems, but it just seems like the rural space, they expect us to not be as savvy as we are.
Hmm.
My brother and I both have multiple degrees. I've got two master's degrees, and he's got two undergrad and one master's, and my sister's got two master's degrees, and we're all working together on projects.
Yeah.
And we know a lot of solutions that can help in a rural community. The challenge is getting people out of the city to come and actually see it.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and
Sure.
what you hope for where this field could go. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we end?
No, no, I think I appreciate you taking an interest in agriculture.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Very good.
need for ag engineers that are bright and savvy like you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure, Pranav.
Thank you. Bye.